Welcome back to Surviving Ish. Today we're hanging out with Julie Cruse, and she is a force to be reckoned with. She is behind the academicabuse.com website and author of the upcoming memoir, The Burn List, which we will be getting into pretty soon. But before we do, Julie, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm all right. So before we hit record, you noticed my background. To the viewers and to the listener, today is my very first recording in my brand new DIY, never doing it again studio. If I didn't love it, it was going to be here anyways. I've had it with that. But luckily, I like it. And you noticed it. So thank you.
It looks great.
Thank you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. So, before we get into our big topics, what are you surviving ish right now?
So these are my petty grievances, right? My surviving
Yeah, yeah.
petty grievances. Well, number one on my list is that there's just one of me, and it's become a serious design flaw. I keep thinking that maybe it's time to outsource to a clone. So, yeah.
Yeah. I never thought of like a clone of me until you said that and I was like, I wouldn't be too mad at that. How
It
do we
would
do
be
that?
so productive. If I just had like a team of three of me, it would just be on.
I mean,
You
because
make
the work ethic, we follow the
Yeah.
rules, like we get shit done.
Yeah. Yes, we do. We hustle. Even when hustle culture is long since dead, we still do it. We still do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I wonder though, like I've always said that I love how diverse my friends are because I don't want to sit down with 100 Davids and hang out with 100 Davids. But I guess if we cloned ourselves just for work, it would be a desk David, a housekeeping David, and then regular 9 to 5 David, where I'm not really having to hang out with myself, right? I don't really have to communicate and hang, like, do I have to feed them?
I don't know, but see, they're you, right? So, like, you know that they'll just do all this stuff,
Yeah,
like, without you doing it for them. Like,
yeah,
my clones, if I had clones, the three of us would be doing it all. I wouldn't just be like, your desk, Julie, because I can't, I do not want to sit in front of a desk all day. Hell no. But like, yeah, I'd be like, okay, I'm sick of this desk stuff. Julia number two, why don't you come over and take over and I'm gonna go outside and garden. We could do
yeah.
that.
Okay, you sold me. You sold me. So however we make that happen, let's make it happen.
Sorry, my camera's shaking. My kitty cat's making a cameo here.
Uh,
So
that's okay. We are pet friendly. And it's so funny too. My first section of my podcasting experience, we were sharing real deep survivor stories, and we still do, but it's like as soon as we would start getting into those conversations, the person that I was speaking with, their animal would come right to them.
oh wow,
Yeah.
they can sense it. They want
Yeah.
to support. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's almost like I don't know if it's some kind of whisper kind of thing, but it's like
Yeah.
somehow when animals hear my voice, they know we're about to talk about some shit and they come to their owner and they're like, "Hey, I'm here. I love you. Everything's fine."
And they just like you, I bet,
Yeah,
too. They hear your
maybe.
voice, they're curious, they just want to hang out with you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's funny because I have zero animals. I love them all. I want them all to be in a cool or warm environment, whichever is fitting for them. I want them to be fed. I want them to be happy. I don't want them in my house. I don't want them in my furniture.
That's totally fair. I mean, my girl is allowed to go anywhere she so pleases. I We rescued her from the
Uh-huh.
street about a year ago, and all my cats have been rescued. So I just literally am like, whatever you want, I don't care. You're
Yeah.
spoiled. Hard
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When my ex and I were together, he was the opposite of me. He was like, any animal in the world is allowed inside my house, on all my furniture. I don't care if you go to work with hair all over you. Like, he was the opposite of me. But of course, I loved all of our animals and took great care of them and miss them dearly. But I haven't, and maybe, because I mean, I guess, well, no, I mean, my breakup's going on 2 years, so maybe one day I'll get where I'll want an animal, but
Yeah.
it's just never been a thing for me.
Yeah. Well, you don't need one. Not everybody likes that type of bond or needs that type of
Yeah,
bond,
yeah,
like, and also they're a responsibility, they are.
yeah,
So there was, I mean, most of my life I was like, no, I'll never adopt a pet. I'll never have a kid, none of it. Like, and then they just have a way of finding me. And when they do, I'm like, okay, all right, I lied. I'll take
yeah.
you.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Now,
love it.
I will say if I was out and about and an animal found me, or like I do donate food to the animal
Yeah.
shelter here, like I do those things all under my podcast name. And so like if I was there and a dog or a cat, as long as it's not a snake, came running up to me and just took to me, I
Yeah.
can't say that I would walk away and say no. But I try to not put myself in those situations because I know that I wouldn't say no, and I'm scared.
Oh, they're the best. There's nothing to be
Yeah,
scared of. If it happens, it happens.
yeah,
And it doesn't.
yeah,
You're an autonomous creature in the universe. And sometimes I like to think of it like petals on a flower.
yeah,
Like everyone who's in our lives is like just we're all one living did whole. And
yeah,
so maybe, one petal falls off and another one grows in its place. And if that happens, and you get yourself a pet or another extension of your family,
yeah.
whatever, your chosen family, your biological family, whatever, it happens.
Yeah.
And if
I,
not, you're a perfect flower, just as you are.
I love that. Thank you. Because I always ask my friends, I was like, is there something wrong with me? Because everyone is such an animal lover, and I love them just kind of like my nieces and nephews, right? I want to play
Yeah,
with them and then I want to send them home.
yeah,
You know?
yeah. Yeah, there can be moments even with mine, but like those moments are so small for me. But yeah, I get
Yeah.
it. I get it. I get it, especially when you're devoted as you are to like your many projects,
Yeah.
then it's just like you already have pets. They're your work, dreams,
Right. Yeah, I love that. Okay, you're giving me some material here to remind myself of. Okay, so here's what I'm surviving ish, and I can't wait to hear if you are have ever been in this situation. So this whole group texting,
Oh,
or like group DM, or, and people just add you without consent, and
oh,
then when you choose to leave, and there's 17 people in there, none of us want to be in there, none of us gave permission to be in there. We all want to leave, but it takes that one person because it says David Keck has left the group. Like, why do you have to
oh
tell them I
yeah.
left? Like, because then I'm wondering, what are you saying about me? Like, well, why did David leave? Did David not like this? Like, well, I'm not listening to David's episodes anymore. Like, F David. Like,
Oh,
what are y'all saying about me after? And I end up having to leave the groups, and then all I think about is David Keck has left the chat, and that makes me so. Do you know what I'm talking about?
okay. This, David, is the same thing as that spot in the corner of your studio. It only bugs you.
I
It
know
only bugs you and it bugs you. You know what
it
I mean? But I don't
does.
think it's bugging anybody else.
You're right.
A group, you have a right to leave a group. Everybody knows that. Everybody's in the same boat,
Yeah.
you know.
I try to say that when I do it, I'm taking one for the team because everyone else is just waiting for it to come up that someone has left the group so that way they can also leave. And so, you know what? I've taken one for the team. But you know what else?
What?
The same people will a month later start another group chat and add me again. And I'm like, still no consent. And I'm the kind of person I cannot stand for anything to be unread on my phone. I
Oh
can't stand to
yeah.
have notifications. It took a lot of therapy for me to be okay with it with my emails because I don't want to forget about it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
with my emails, I've gotten to a place to where that's okay. But if it's a Facebook notification, if it's a private message, if it's a text message,
Yeah.
Oh boy, I cannot stand to have that icon there. I've got to be right on it, which is why a clone would be great.
He brought it back. You brought it back. I know.
Right?
Um, well,
So thank you for letting me vent with that. Okay, so where should we start with this conversation? Because you started, okay, maybe just give us a little bit of history on what led you to the academicabuse.com, because that's then what led you to the book, correct? Is that
yeah.
kind of the chain of,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. Well, actually, sort of, kind of. So what happened is, and this is a story that is actually in my memoir, The Burn List, is I resigned from a hostile workplace. There was a university environment. And that was in late 2023. And then suddenly I got struck down with COVID and I was down for like 3 months. And it was the longest I was ever sick in my life.
Wow.
And it was a long recovery. And during that time of being basically couch ridden, I just didn't have the energy anymore to evade myself, my truth, things that I had, I guess, just stuffed down. Just my energy was so sucked dry that they all just came up. And so I pulled out a Google document one night and just started writing. And I didn't think anything would come of it. I really didn't. I was just like, I just need to do, I remember taking an improv class a long time ago, and they told us, tell the story the way you think you would tell it if you thought that the person you were telling it to wanted to hear every single detail in like
Oh, wow.
graphic, juicy, vivid portrayal. I don't know if I said vivid already. I think I did. But like just
No, but
really
that's
tell the
brilliant
story.
though.
Yeah. And I remembered how therapeutic that was to try that. So I was like, that's it. I'm just going to open a Google document and write my entire life story as though whoever is reading it, which is no one, my imaginary reader, is dying to hear every word I say.
Mm.
And fast forward 6 weeks later, I'd written 180,000 words. I couldn't stop. And that at that point was really like a third of what I had to say. But my partner, who's a retired playwright, writer, he used to do poetry in the French Quarter as a living, like on his typewriter. He was like, Julie, I think you have a book on your hands. And I was like, I wonder what would happen if I like really thought about it that way. And then lo and behold, I found the through line in the story of there being this pipeline of abuse from home to higher ed. That was the through line. And there are other dimensions of my life story that are not highlighted in the chosen condensed version, which went from 180,000 words to 77,000 words. So there's a lot taken out. But once I had it down to like a book and was shopping it around, I was looking into comparable titles, and I accidentally found another memoir. Here it is, by a woman named Caloise Phoenix, that just came out literally weeks after I started my search. It's called Studies in Lechery. And she describes her experience being sexually abused by a professor and what happened. You can tell I've like tapped the daylights out of it. But I ended up finding out that she was published by the same publisher that was signed up to publish my book.
Oh, wow.
So, and we're only one of three memoirs in this space. So she was number two. I came along as number three. I got a hold of her. We talked. And here's how academicabuse.com was born. We were like, this, it's so frustrating because we try to find, you know, other stories like ours that are out there, and we know they're out there. And, we can't find any other books like ours. How is that a thing? Like there's no way that's true. And so lo and behold, we both were kind of like, well, what would happen if, we could find a way to pull all the things that are out there somewhere where we could all find them, And she was like, Julie, that is a great idea. And I think you should really do that. And I was like, all right, well, Cal and I, we're like friends now, and that really encouraged me, and so I sat down and figured it out. I literally sat down in about 2 weeks, created the data dashboard that's on academicabuse.com. And for those of you at home who are listening who don't know what that is, basically I aggregate news stories from around the world into one interactive searchable dashboard that allows people to look up by university name, by category of abuse, whether it's discrimination or harassment or Title IX or bullying or anything like that. And you can also see it on a map and see where it's concentrated, again, based on news coverage. So I was shocked because when I sat down and invented that database, it was December 31st, 2024. And so I was like, oh, it's perfect. I finished it right before the new year. January 1st rolls around. I'm thinking, oh, there might be 5 stories every few months, just because that's what I was used to seeing when I would search in Google. There have been like 100 or more stories a day, every day. And in the first year, it was about 6,000 stories that crossed my dashboard. And this was with limited RSS feed searching. Like I pull RSS feeds in, that's how I do it. I had limited terms. And now already this year, I've expanded my terms to try to catch more of the stories. And I will see anywhere from 100 to 200 stories a day sometimes that I then have to go through and clean, right? So if I clean 100, 200 stories, I might end up with like 50 or 60 for that day. A lot of them are, and this is a whole story too, a lot of them are not higher ed based. They're just, celebrities or politicians or high schools or community K-12, like anything. And I see them all the time. And so, yeah, it's kind of a heartbreaking side project to be involved in that, but it's providing a service. It's showing
Yeah.
people like we are not alone. We're not. Abuse in higher ed is real. It is rampant. And I think to date there are, I want to say 727 universities total that were captured. Okay, 727 universities implicated. Why?
Okay, so a couple questions.
Yeah.
When you say doing like the cleanup, is that kind of like where your vetting process, like you're not going to put something up unless you know that this is
Yeah.
factual information. So that's kind of the vetting process.
Well, I don't, I'm not a reporter, you know
Okay,
what I mean? So I don't vet the stories.
sure.
What I do is I eliminate the ones that are not related to my search criteria.
Gotcha.
And they go bye-bye. Also, sometimes there's duplicate stories that'll come through, and I like set up a program to scrub out duplicates and only keep the most recent of the stories, stuff like that. So I try to make sure like that whatever is in there represents the current media coverage of this issue, without inflating numbers arbitrarily.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha. So the vetting part of it is that it comes from a reliable source. Either way, it's what is in the media.
Yeah.
It's what is being said. You're
Yeah.
not saying I'm dying on this hill. This is it, but this is what is so it would also be good if I had children and or if I was about to send my child to a university. I could
Yes.
use your website to research it to see what the bullying is like, what the
Yes.
discrimination is like. Like
Yes.
with me being a gay man, let's say, okay, well,
Yeah.
my friends, a gay couple, they're both white. They just adopted a mixed child.
Yeah.
And so you would be able to use your website to see like what if there's discrimination against like homosexuals or
Yeah.
race, like those kind of
Yes.
stories, right?
Ability, age, all sorts of things that I've seen in there. Yeah. Yeah.
Why do we not hear a lot about these cases? Is it money?
Oh boy, that's a sore spot. That
Yeah, I
is a
bet.
sore spot, that question from experience. And I'm going to show you another book I think I have here, or I guess I'm not going to show it because it's across the room there. But there's this other book, okay, called Complaint, with an exclamation point, by a woman named Sarah Ahmed, who famously resigned from Goldsmiths over the university's failure to address sexual harassment. And her book, well, she publicly resigned, right? And so what ended up happening is all these other people that went through the same thing started writing her and telling her, like, yeah, this is what happened when I tried to file a complaint. Here's what happened when I filed a complaint. And so she put together all of the letters that she got and basically did like a qualitative study identifying themes in what the people were saying they'd experienced. And so she talks about how complaints in higher ed are often weaponized against complainants. And she also talks about, I think she calls, there's a line in her book that I love, and it has something to do, it's along the lines of like, even a burial itself can be buried if a burial itself should not have happened, meaning public records start walking away and going magically missing. Um, Witnesses that come forward are conveniently dropped from the record. And I've seen it firsthand. I've seen it firsthand. And it is absolutely torturesome that this is what's going on in higher ed, and it infuriates me. I'm outraged. I think we should be outraged. It's supposed to be
Yeah.
our gateway to upward social and economic mobility, and then you have elitist, racist, sexist administrations and constituents basically gatekeeping uh, on the basis of protected classes that should be protected. But then the gears of the shadow policies in higher ed start turning, and before you know it, anybody who tries to make an allegation is, now a ghost of campus. They're not seen anymore. They're gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
That,
that, I think, is why we don't hear as
yeah.
much as we should.
Yeah. And, and like I said, isn't money. And I guess that's the short answer. But man,
Mm-hmm.
so, okay. So
Yeah.
your abuse that you focus on
Mm-hmm.
is that you were a victim of this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Repeatedly, pretty much constantly. Um, and that is why I had an early developmental editor who told me I should cut my chapters about my childhood. And I was like, oh, absolutely not, because that was the reason that I was targeted. People need to understand what made me vulnerable in that environment, why I was targeted. Otherwise, you look at me and I'm like a white girl. So, like, yes, I'm a woman, but I'm also white, and there's intersectional levels of privilege. But the thing about higher ed is that it was built by and for a very specific class of people. And they're very good at identifying who is and is not part of that class, down to the clothes that you wear, down to the way your hair looks, down to the way you speak, think, and act, who you associate with, right? I mean, they're like little cliques. It's like popularity cliques.
Hmm.
And they know, who's in and who's out, and they work hard to make sure that they protect their interests. So yeah, I started getting it really early in college, and really had no clue why it was happening. And initially thought, wow, I must be crazy, because like this is not at all like what I thought college was supposed to be. I thought, like, you go, you work hard, you get good grades, you get scholarships, and you go get a great job. And of
Yeah.
course, my dream was to work in higher ed. Like, I thought that was like the most amazing thing you could ever do, is like think and be creative all day for a living. I mean, come on, who doesn't want to do that? That's what
Yeah.
I thought. And and I started finding out that each professor has their own kind of like niche area of research. And in my experience, the kind of golden rule is that you are not supposed to think for yourself as much as they say they want you to. What they really want is for you to kick up and reward what they're researching, what they're working on, what their opinions are, and they punish you if you do not. They punish you. I mean, I've gotten punished with grades. I've gotten punished with isolation, just taking me out of opportunities that everybody else was getting, just for speaking on my own opinion about like what I thought of the subject material, which is what I was told even by the professor themselves. This is what we want you to do. But
Right.
that's really like storefront. What they really
Right.
mean is, I want you to um, advance my agenda, advance
Yeah.
my career. And
Yeah.
if you don't, you're a threat to me. You're a liability.
Yeah. Your opinion and thoughts are welcome as long as they're approved by me and they're my opinions and thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. If they don't reward my position, my state in this domain of research, then you are a threat. You are competition. You are inherently making my own flaws in my research known to me and others. It's not, it's not a safe space for actual open dialogue. It's not.
Yeah.
So, there's, yeah, that's like kind of the baseline stuff that I
Yeah.
experienced. And then I started experiencing intellectual property theft, where my own novel research, my own ideas and concepts were being stolen by faculty. And at one point, I was cornered in an office and blackmailed with my degree being threatened. Um, and then I filed a report, and the faculty member who was involved in the blackmail ended up telling me, like, I'm going to ruin your entire career, and the faculty are going to help me do it. And he started his cross institutional retaliation campaign, and it followed me to grad school.
Wow.
And I like to call this, by the way, the survivorification of higher ed. Like you've seen the show Survivor,
Yeah.
like people really start to treat high achievers as threats.
Yeah.
So, and I was definitely a model student, a high achiever. And it was really odd because I would get awards and recognition from outside my own department. Like the College of Fine Arts at one point gave me some sort of special talent scholarship for this piece that I did that was super innovative. And I was invited to do like residencies and guest speaking lectures and stuff from elsewhere. And then my own faculty, they treated me like I was a plague in their department. And so, yeah, it's like, so those are things, by the way, these things are they are what make a student extremely vulnerable. Like I
Yeah.
came in vulnerable already on the basis of class, first generation, low income, at risk, having come from that background, I was super vulnerable. But then the faculty started lining up against me. And that made me the perfect target for a sexual predator who wanted
Mm.
to coerce me into sex, threatening my grades, threatening my degree, threatening my career, threatening my family, threatening me personally, strangling me. And, that was all enabled by the discrimination and harassment that I faced writ large in those academic environments. That's what made me such a special, easy target for these other types of predators in higher ed. And so that was a big part of why I wanted to write this book, is to show like we need to stop this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This evolved into sexual assault.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Multiple times. Multiple times.
By multiple people?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I whew. I it was interesting because by the time I'd come to higher ed, I'd already been through so much domestic abuse, physical violence, sexual abuse, verbal and emotional abuse. I was like, my parents were on crack. I was kicked out when I was 14. They didn't want to take care of me, so, and somehow I managed to get a full scholarship to college anyway. That's how determined I was. So by the time I got to college, I was really like, man, I'm invincible. If I can get through that shit, I can get through fucking anything. And I will tell you that all of that changed the very first time that I was sexually assaulted by a professor, coercively raped. That changed everything, because that was a person that I really trusted, someone I really looked up to. Sometimes I would even emulate that person, hoping to be, that kind of expert one day. Like, I want to be that good at stuff too. And, I admired the person, I trusted the person. And then, to be, whew, excuse me,
No, you're okay.
um, to be treated that way by that person, who, by the way, was a volunteer and an activist, and someone everybody kind of associated with, like, a flock of doves entering the room, like just that golden boy veneer. Everybody just fawned over him,
Yeah.
and so I was very, at that age, like, avoiding men who I thought would perpetrate against me what men did in my childhood.
Mm.
And so this person made themselves appeal to me as, I'm your friend. I'm someone you can trust. I want to be with you. I want you to, go to this school to be with me, and really courted my trust. And then when I said no, I don't want to do this, things really, really took a turn. And then I found out afterward, like, how quickly that person who claimed to care about me so much just dropped me dead in the water, and was just like, flush you down the toilet. You don't exist to me. And by the way, I'm turned on by all the students in the department anyway. So you're not the biggest concern here, was basically what I was told by the
Right.
person.
You
And
hurt
I,
his ego, so he had to let you know that you were not the only one, that he had other options, and
yeah. And I just was like, by the way, this was how, although I was sexually abused in childhood, I was abstinent when this happened.
yeah,
So that was how my consent was taken from me as an adult. My grades were threatened, you know,
yeah,
and then I was physically forced at one point into it. And yeah, so I had to then live with, like, this piece of my identity being taken, my consent. The last thing I thought I had in the whole world, my consent,
yeah,
was taken by this person who had a responsibility to protect me, who lured me in with that promise and then assaulted me and then acted like I didn't exist. And this was after 4 years of, like, grooming me, So I was thinking, like, oh yeah, this is my buddy, my professor is my buddy, and asking me on dates and stuff. I didn't know. I was just a kid. I'm like in my early 20s. I'm like, I don't get it. And so that was the moment that I shifted from being this, like, invincible, like, I have done it all, I'm so determined I can do anything, to all of a sudden I just was really finding it hard to just function, just
mm,
function in the day, like. And then again, I was even more vulnerable after that. So I was
I'm sure.
really, really isolated. My friends didn't understand. My peers didn't understand. People started turning their backs on me, and I call this, like, a bystander syndrome. Like, they
Yeah,
don't want to. They don't want to be at odds with the person whose goodwill they still need, because they
yeah,
work with them or they study under them. And then, the survivors left out in the wind, and even in that place, being more isolated, longing for someone to trust and confide in. And that was when I was again targeted by a second professor who was a sexual predator as well, and he coercively abused me for 6 years. Yeah. And so it took me changing careers. I had to completely throw away everything I'd done up to that point to get away from his web of influence,
Yes.
change careers multiple times, change cities multiple times because I he let me know that he was like cyber stalking me. So I had to completely erase my identity, online, in person, everything, cut and run. And that whole story is in my book. That's a whole nother story. But yeah, the the things that go on in higher ed, I think half my point, there are many points, but half of it is like, you professors, when you put your students in this type of position, when you corner them, you are willing participants at that point in what happens to them next. You've basically set the trap.
Yeah.
All they got to do is, somebody has to do is just trip it and they're done.
Yeah.
So like I have a lot of anger about that.
Yeah.
And
As you should.
yeah,
As we all should. And like you're giving me so much information that I just didn't know happened as much as it does. It's like when I first started my podcast, I come across a lady that was telling me about abuse in church and religion and in the troubled teen industry.
yeah,
And I was never involved in religious cults. I've had some religious trauma, but nothing like that. I'm a gay man in the South, of course. I've got religious trauma.
uh,
And so, like, I started really diving deep into all of this to the point that it became a whole other podcast hosted by Jenny called Unholier. And I'm like, I I want to do a series on this. I want to have some conversation about this to bring awareness. And so
yeah,
I wish I had this statistic in front of me, but there's a lot of victim blaming when it comes to any kind of victim, and I don't know if you know any of my story, but the listeners, unless they're new, they do. But again, gay man in the South, 10 years ago, a man broke inside my home and raped me and beat me until he turned himself in for murder. It was a big hate crime kind of thing. Luckily, I was found like 18 hours later, but I had to learn how to walk again. I got down to 98 pounds. And I could really relate to what you said about the bystander guilt because I lost a lot of people that I thought
yeah,
would be by my side and they just didn't know how to. Now the man that did this to me, I did not know him. I would not have been able to pick him out of a crowd until I started having to face him in court, during the trial period and stuff. So there is that where I didn't have people that were connected to him that was like, how do I navigate this? But they just didn't know how to treat a victim. People wanted to immediately start throwing in, oh, you're a survivor, you're a survivor, you're a survivor.
oh
Fine, I
yeah,
love that, but it started becoming toxic positivity to me,
yeah,
and to the point that that word used to piss me off.
yeah.
So I guess that's the long way around of me saying
Thank
how
you.
I'm
Yeah,
able to kind of relate with you. But there was a statistic that I think is very important that to mention, and but it's that if sexual assault happened to you, especially in your childhood,
yeah,
the stats of it repeating itself and happening again
yeah.
is extremely high.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of people think so back to the victim blaming, right? I've heard so many
Right.
stories from victims or even people who are associated with victims saying, well, she's saying she's been raped by three men. Like, does it really happen that way? Yes. Yes, it
Yes.
does because the
Yes, it does.
vulnerability, right?
Because of the vulnerability and the isolation, right? Because exactly what you said. Because a victim, I'm going to say that word, not survivor, I'm going to say victim, of victims' friends, of victims' families. And for all of you out there listening, when you cast doubt on that person, or you walk away, or you just say, well, it's too much for me right now, and you close the door, you are actively contributing to that person being so vulnerable, right? That what happens is they lose the ability to have a selection standard. That bar, it was high when they were friends with you. It was high when they could rely on you, when they could count on you. Yes, it was high enough that they could turn away whoever and whoever, but now you're not there anymore. And whoever left, that bar is now lower and lower and lower with each person that walks away. And then it gets so low, that person is so alone, so isolated, that the first person who walks in and says, oh, you poor baby, I want to help you, I want to take care of you, you're gonna like melt right into that. And you could see red flags, and I've been there. I see the red flags, but I'm so alone
Yeah.
that they're saying all the right things, and I need to hear it,
Yeah.
and then you become, yeah,
Yeah. And in your case, and I can't speak for you, and nor am I trying to, but
yeah,
what like the Lifetime movie that was playing in my head while you were telling me your story
yeah.
is you were abandoned by your parents.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Regard what for whatever reason. I mean, I think addiction is absolutely a
yeah,
disease, but that at the same time is not giving them too much grace or justifying it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But then when you go to school and you fought so hard to get there, and the fact that statistics show you probably would have statistics show that most people end up like their parents when it comes to
yeah,
abandonment and drugs,
yeah,
and you didn't, you fought
yeah,
not to. And so
yeah.
now you have this authority figure in front of you that is what you want to be, and maybe the kind
Yeah.
of dad that you wanted to be.
Exactly.
And
I
so
wanted,
of course, let him pet you one time, let him tap you on the head and say, I got you,
yeah.
and you're going to melt.
Of course. Of course. I mean, thank you for saying that. That is absolutely true. And it's funny because at the time, I didn't see myself that way. I didn't
Right.
see myself. I thought I was so strong and like tough and could do it all. But I think I was also lying to myself, like that deep down, like, yeah, I really needed parental love that I wasn't getting. I needed family love that I wasn't getting. I needed community love that I wasn't getting. About the only thing that I got back then, to be honest, was like, hit on.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you want to go wherever and
Yeah.
whatever. And I'm like, no, I don't,
Yeah.
And so then as soon as you don't want to, you're disposable to
Right.
them. And then at the same time, like girls in the community would get so vitriolic toward me because their guys all wanted to, pardon my French, fuck me. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And so like, and I'm like, dude, I don't want to, I don't care about any
Yeah.
of them. I don't want them. All I care about is my college degree. And so I'm isolated everywhere I fucking go.
Yeah.
And then like, of course, someone throws a lifeline and there's someone respectable in an awe-inspiring position, and oh, maybe they could help me in my career since all the faculty are ganging up on me. Man, they could see they're throwing me a life
Yeah.
preserver
Yeah.
at that point. That's what it feels like. They're throwing me a life preserver
Yeah.
and then you grab on and find out that you're being lured into the mouth of jaws,
Yeah.
and you just walk away with limbs missing or try to swim away, I guess, or just
Yeah.
start singing for that matter. Yeah.
I want to throw this out there and then I have a question. But I have been in the place, the mental state that you've been in of I thought I was strong. I thought I could do
Mm,
this. And I keep reminding myself that so many things can be true at the same time,
mhm.
right? Just because this ugly thing happened to me does not erase the fact that I'm strong, does not erase the fact of that I'm determined. And so I have
Yeah.
to keep reminding myself. Like one thing that I tell myself in so many situations, at any podcast episode, my listeners are probably like, oh, David's probably going to get that tattooed on him somewhere because I always say two things can be true at the same time, right? Like I am strong, I am determined, I am these things. I just also have a weakness and I also have a want and a need, and someone knew how to prey on that.
Yeah.
And that is not my fault. And I will not victim blame myself
Yeah.
by then saying that I wasn't as strong as I thought and I wasn't as determined as I thought, or I'm stupid. And I keep reminding myself of that.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The question that I have might go into a bit of a different direction.
Actually, real quick here,
Yeah,
one of the
please.
things is a lot of times they prey on you because you're strong. Yeah, they like that.
Yeah,
Then that's shiny prey. There's
yeah,
easy prey and there's shiny prey. And
yeah,
sometimes there's both.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it goes into that whole like you want what you can't have kind of thing, so you fight for it a little bit more, and then sometimes it gets to where it becomes a bit of an obsession and unhealthy,
Yeah.
where like the stalking starts, and you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 So you said something to me that really stuck out to me because I have been there and I absolutely agree. Um, when we were talking about people who maybe don't know how to interact with the victim and they step away from,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
plays a role in the victim's state of mind of the abandonment.
Oh yeah.
How
Yeah.
is it that we can word that with someone that we care about? Because sometimes people can and do and will healthily need to step away.
Yeah.
Sometimes I know that there were people that have come to me years after and said the reason I stepped away is because it was triggering me to something that I had suppressed from when I was a kid. And
Yeah.
it started bringing up these memories, seeing your face, seeing these things, reading the headlines was triggering me. And so I love everything that you said and I agree with it. But at the same time, there has to be a way where there's not so much pressure on the person that's supposed to be the support system to not step away and without the abandonment. Am I making myself clear at all?
Yeah. I hear what you're saying, but I also think this, that it doesn't take much to be there if everybody stays in it, right? Like, so if my whole network would have even given me 2% each,
Yeah,
collectively, I would have had, I don't know, 75% of what I needed. And I
yeah,
probably would have been a lot better
yeah,
than
yeah,
seeing them just be like, I can't give you 2%. I can only give you 0%. And I'm going to walk away. And in some cases, not even 0%, sometimes like straight up aggression and hostility towards
yeah,
me. And like, you're making this up. Like,
yeah,
come on, Julie, stuff like that. And I'm like, then there's violence that comes from them that you absorb as well.
yeah,
So I don't want to say that we as victims have to give our support network, we don't have to do work for them to to make to help them figure out how to support us. But I can say this, like, figure out what your 2% looks like. You know what I mean? Like, and all of you stay in it.
yeah,
You can text somebody else and be like, hey, will you check on Julie today?
yeah,
Or check on David today. You know what
yeah,
I mean? You don't have to do it all, but don't just ghost the person and don't be hostile toward them either.
yeah.
Like, is what I would have to say about it.
Yeah, I love that because when as I was attempting to ask that question, I'm so glad you figured out what the hell I was trying to say. but but I just kept thinking to myself like the people that ghosted me, a lot of them
Yeah.
came back years later and had a
Yeah.
justifiable reason to it. And of course, I've forgiven that, but they're not my everyday friends anymore. A lot, David has changed, like there's a lot that has changed. Time has passed. And I just kept thinking, like, what would have been different? What could have been the outcome if they had just said to me, I don't know how. I don't know how to be here. I don't know how to be there for you. What do you need? And this is what I can give.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
hear what you need, David. And out of the 10 things that you need, here's the two things I can do. And I'm going to try to do that. But I also need you to be patient with me. If there was that communication, we can be a team and work together, right? I know that what happened with me was very triggering to people. My little nephews saw on the news what happened to me just
Yeah.
passing by the television during dinner, and they were babies, and they were like, Uncle David? And so that's when they had to be taught about hate crimes. That's when they had to be taught about attempted murder. That's when they heard about rape. And when they didn't even know they were not even old enough to know what sex was. They had to learn about gay stuff and, like, and so yeah, like I understand there can be things that happen that that someone may not be able to fully be 100%. but I don't know
Yeah.
that I've ever asked. I've only asked 100% out of what you can give me. If you can give me
Yeah.
2%, I want 100% of that 2%.
I mean, it's really interesting when you put it that way, like, what do I want or need? You know what I mean? Like, or just even having been asked, I doubt in my mind at the time, and your situation was very different than mine. Mine, I was not hospitalized and learning how to walk again. That would have been very different. But I think my list would have been real simple. I think I would have been just like, can you bring me a meal? I
Yeah.
can't cook today. I don't want to socialize.
Yeah.
But I'd love if you would drop off a plate of food at my door,
Yeah.
or like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it, but like, just let's go hang out and do
Yeah.
something else,
Yeah.
like, or I don't think I would have been asking for like hours of talk therapy or, I wasn't into that. Like, I'm just like, and everybody's different, somebody might need that to like cry on someone's shoulder. And I think in my case, the fallout was so extreme in my social circle. Like, so many people just ghosted or kicked me while I was down.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would have just been like asking them not to do that. Like, just
Right. Right.
don't kick me while I'm down
Yeah.
and don't just ghost me. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, and I'm glad that they did in a way though, because farewell, fair weather friends. Like, you guys are gone now. And
Yeah.
now the people that are in my life, as few and far between as they are the people that I know that actually care about me.
Yeah.
Me, really the me, the one that went through all the shit and the one that's fun to hang out with, not just the one that's fun to hang out with.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I have one more question, then I want to move to the book. I can't wait to talk about the book.
Yeah.
So and I don't want this conversation to go a political route by any means, unless you do. But with when I hear the word discrimination right now, I
Yeah.
immediately start thinking of DEI, and I
Oh
start
yeah.
thinking of the loopholes that people have now. So when this whole thing with DEI all came about, with
Mm-hmm.
what you and your platform does with discrimination, is there something that, like, does this DEI thing play into a factor with what you all do with discrimination and fighting against?
Okay. All right. Let me see if I can break this apart.
Yeah.
Um, academicabuse.com, the platform, has a resource about discrimination. That resource does not describe DEI. It is a description of the federal, like, basically what constitutes discrimination according to federal policy, and also how to survive it, how to deal with it. What do you do if it's happening to you? And different ways that you might be discriminated against if you're a faculty person or a staff or student. Like, there's some examples of what it can look like, so you can recognize it in case you don't recognize it, which was this is basically the resource I wish I would have had. Like, I
Yeah.
wish I would have been able to look at it and be like, oh my god, there's grooming, there's touching, there's asking me out in private, there's all this stuff. I
Yeah.
wish I would have seen it, but I didn't. I had to learn it myself. So that resource is completely and entirely separate. Now, when it comes to the stories that come through the dashboard, to use this word, don't take a political position on the stories that come through. That's not fair to the audience. You know what I mean? I'm
Right.
just saying this university was accused of this by the Trump.
Right.
And so one of the things that I do is I have robots that I designed that are not actually robots, they're computer programs, clones and robots.
Ah, I love
That
it.
this program will actually categorize stories as whether or not they involve federal action. So that's one way
Mm.
that people can like separate. Okay, this was the current administration, deciding that this school had done something, which is different than a victim making an accusation in a public forum, right? So I make that distinction. Now, as far as myself and this whole debate about DEI, I'll tell you what, I am a huge believer in affirmative action. Okay, I love affirmative action. We need it. Now, unfortunately, in higher ed, DEI, in my experience across the board, has been grossly misused. The people at the table talking about the DEI are always mostly white, always mostly men, and usually are completely fucking hypocritical.
Yeah.
So, like, they can talk about it and pay lip service to it because it's a buzzword, and they
Yeah.
can even get funding for it,
Oh yeah.
but they don't actually do what they're supposed to be doing with it.
Yeah.
So now this whole thing about DEI, gotta go, whatever, take it out, freedom of speech. I'm like, well, you know what? You're actually not losing anything to begin with because they weren't actually doing what they were supposed to be doing with. I watched them across multiple institutions. I watched them. You can go on any campus and circle the classrooms and see what color and what gender most of the professors are, let alone what their sexual orientation is, et cetera, their ability, their age. Like, you can go and look, you can see it.
Yeah.
So are they actually doing what they say they're going to do with this money, or aren't they? And that's my, like, very controversial 20 cents on the subject, because, like,
Yeah.
nowadays cancel culture, somebody could be like, oh, she's whatever.
No, I
And I'm,
know.
you know what, like, I'm saying it all. Actually, I'm
Yeah.
saying it all in this book, and I'm not blaming
Yeah.
anybody but the people in higher ed for
Yeah.
this. It's not DEI's fault.
Yeah.
It's the privileged class's fault that is not actually upholding DEI the way they were supposed to begin with.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I get real fired up about that subject too. So I'm going to take it
Yeah.
down a notch.
Yeah, I know. I know. Like when I was, going over my notes and everything that your person, your PR person that sent me, like there
Uh-huh.
was just so many things that I was like, how with the way that today's America is changing,
Yeah.
how is this influencing it? Because I feel like certain class of people, certain race of people, gender of people, white men, and I'm a white man. I know I have privilege. Now you find out I'm gay, and I'm knocking down a couple notches, but
It's sectionality.
right, but I still lead as the white man, and so it just I feel like there's a little bit more leeway given on certain things such as sexual assault. And so when I was thinking of, when I was hearing your story and I get I'm so mad about it. And the fact that like this is happening right now. This isn't a one-time hiccup. This is
It's
it,
systemic. It's
it's happening
pervasive. It's
while we speak.
institutional.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I'm reading Virginia Giuffre's memoir about surviving Epstein, and it is notable how often those who were responsible turned their backs, turned a blind eye. And I also think it is notable how much the media, um, in the early days of her attempts to shine light on the subject, were hostile toward her
Yeah.
and called her a liar and, defamed her character. And, like, I've experienced that. And so, like, this is why I'm so grateful that I'm having an opportunity to tell my story, to engage in this podcast, to reach people, because I know that, David, you are doing something by doing this. You are doing something that, like, pretty much millions of other people won't do,
Yeah.
or will do the opposite of. And, like, I really feel like this is a really great space to say, like, one of the quotes in my memoir is silence is violence. And, I want this to be a rallying cry for everyone out there to, stand up and speak, because if we don't speak, nobody knows. It is silence enables it. So, like, this platform that you're creating, where you're elevating victims and giving us, or survivors, whatever you want to call us, I like to call myself a chief investigative survivor. Like,
Yeah.
I want to give it a little bit more ring. Like, I'm doing more than surviving. I'm doing a whole rigorous research and kind of
Yeah.
low-key indie journalism-ish type thing.
Yeah.
So, like, you call it a little more than that. But I find it interesting, like, David, you and we've gone through this, right? And, like, we're the ones doing it.
Yeah.
And so it should be other people who want to support us, who lift us up, and who do that work with us, or even lead that work. So
Yeah.
I digress. I wish more of us were out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I do too. And I notice that the more I speak, like one of the things I wear with a badge of honor is I have been so many people's first time sharing their full story on a podcast. And the fact that they trust me and they
Yeah.
trust my platform and they feel open and safe with me. And and a lot of it is women. A lot of the victims are women, and I'm a man, but I'm a gay man, and that gives them some comfort. And to be that
Yeah.
person for them, it's almost making me teary-eyed. Somebody asked me a question. I would love your thought on this before we start closing out. Is someone asked me, like, what is the biggest obstacle that I'm coming across? And for me, it's that take the Epstein list, take those victims.
Yeah.
People want to say, well, innocent until proven guilty, or we don't know if this is evidence, or maybe they're lying. And my question is, would they say that to their daughter?
Oh, yeah.
Would if their daughter came to them and said, "This man has done this to me," do you think that man should keep his job? Do you think that man should be quote unquote innocent until proven guilty? Or like, how can I make them help them see this person, this other victim, as they would their daughter? And that's where I keep struggling.
I have thoughts.
I would
I
love
have
to hear.
so tomorrow, actually, St. Patrick's Day, which is the anniversary of three of my sexual assaults and the actual official launch day of my memoir.
Wow.
I am going out to the French Quarter in a graduation cap and gown to represent the graduations that I didn't go to because of what happened. And I am going to carry a sign, and I'm going to carry a copy of my book. I'm going to be marching around in the French Quarter with all the drunkards. And the sign is going to say St. Patrick's Day, 06, 07, 09, three sexual assaults, three professors, countless threats, zero anonymous reporting options under Title IX. And people will have the option to sign my gown if it happened to them and all this stuff. I say all this to say there are big calls to action, big asks that I have with this book. And one of them is anonymous Title IX complaints. So we're talking about, you asked was, the barrier of due process and being believed. I think that we are so technologically advanced with all of our AI and, well, God knows, government programs that are doing God knows what with robots and everything else. Okay. Like, we have the technology, we've had it. We've had it for decades
Yeah.
to do a very simple anonymous reporting system. Okay. Where now, if you picture this, right? Okay. And this is again for everyone at home. Victims do not like to come forward about their story. Okay. Like, we're not like, hey, everybody, look at me a different way than you've ever seen me. Take pity on me, run away from me. Don't try to work with me anymore because you might get caught up in it. You know what I mean? We're not out there benefiting from doing that. So the first thing is, like, if we come forward, chances are we've already weighed the risk of all of that and decided that, we're hurting enough that we need to brave that risk anyway to tell our story and speak our truth. So please try to believe us. Please try to believe us, just on that note. But then again, like, we have technology. We can, and I've built my own. I built an anonymous database, right, at academicabuse.com. You can go and say what happened to you. And I'm like, well, this whole thing is supposed to be a model for any institution, any like state or federal level of government to duplicate this process so that, hey, specifically in my area is higher ed, but this could also be in corporate. Let's say you have a problem with someone and they're discriminating against you, harassing you, whatever it is, bullying you, sexually assaulting you. You can go and file your anonymous complaint, keep yourself safe from retaliation, and that gets logged. So then what would happen if, like, this person was a serial predator, which let's say 9 times out of 10 they are, right? Like, I'm not a statistical expert on that, but I'm
Right.
just going to say from my experience, they are
Yeah.
serial predators. So wouldn't it be great if it was like, The victim was anonymous. The institution was anonymous. The predator was anonymous. The those reviewing it were anonymous. So if we use this higher ed term, it's a double blind review, right? So we care enough in higher ed about science to keep bias out of the science itself, but we don't care enough about the scientists to have a double blind review when they're being violated, right? So, but we can build that, we can have that. And so in the system, they would get entered in and get tagged with a number. And let's say like multiple complaints start stacking up against the same individual or the same institution. Then a reviewer comes in and goes, oh, well, it's time we investigate this number for this institution. They determine a finding, and then the finding is delivered to the institution without anybody ever knowing. And so there's no bias. They can't be like, oh, this is Stanford, I'm not going to mess with Stanford.
Right.
They can't do that because they don't know. They just see a number on the screen.
Yeah.
They can't look at it and see, oh, this is Epstein, I better not fuck with Epstein, because it's just a number on the screen.
Yeah.
If we would have had that decades ago, that could have been stopped like thousands of victims earlier, and this is something I really want to say. Like, you asked these barriers due process, and I'm like, well, we have the means to get around it. I've already started building it, conceptualizing it. We need the money to do it.
Yeah.
Like somebody put the money in.
Yeah.
I'll come in, I'll volunteer my time, and I'll be like, set it up like this, no, this. And I really believe in that. Like, I hope that people watch this. I hope that people share this. I hope that people, when the time comes, I'll have my own petitions and get everybody to sign it and stuff like that. But for now, back the book, pick up a copy, and that's going to help me get the funding to go and do this. So,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. Julie, before we go, as I mentioned, I'm going to share all the links.
Yeah.
My last little fun question for you is when I hear the burn list, I
Yeah.
immediately go to the burn book in the movie Mean Girls. So that's immediately what I think. So what helped you with this title, and what is your reasoning for this title? I love to know, how did you name your baby?
Yeah, okay, David, you're going to be special here because other people have asked me this and I've refused to answer.
Oh
But for you,
wow.
I'm going to answer. For you, I'm going to answer. I'm not going to get emotional, I promise. So, in the opening scene of the book, it takes place in 1984. And that was the first time a serial predator broke into our house and, brace yourself, brutally beat and raped my mother for like 10 hours straight. The sun was coming up and he was still at it. And we were upstairs. My brother was downstairs, saw the whole thing. And my mom kept screaming, jump off the balcony, pretend it's like a fire, go get help. It's like a fire. It's like a fire. And he kept coming back. And every time he came back, my mom would say, come on, you guys, it's like a fire. We have to go. And we would scramble naked and barefoot to the car in the middle of the night to get away from this guy and just go wherever we could go. So that was my 3 years old. That was me at 3, like, pretend it's a fire, we have to go. And then at some point, my early 20s, needed to start trying to purge these bad memories. And so I had a journal burning party. And I had literally like 20 journals I've been keeping since like 4th grade, documenting every detail of everything. And I've set them all on fire. Okay. So that's another fire metaphor. And then at some point in the book and in my life, in my story, in my 3rd degree, in my PhD, I start realizing that what happened to me is I was blacklisted, right, by the bad actors,
Yeah.
by my hunters. They had blacklisted me, but it felt more like a burn list. Like they wanted to annihilate me. They wanted to annihilate any possible opportunity of future success. They would torch opportunities and reputations alike. And it wasn't just me, it was anyone that they victimized. And I watched it. And so I realized that I had been put on a burn list. And I wanted to be off of it. I wanted to be off of it. So at the end of the book, I say, I tried purging the past in a journal burning party 20 years ago. It didn't work. Now I'm blazing the silence. I strike the match and hand it to you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with me and my listeners. And I've got to have you back. I've got to know how tomorrow goes. Just know that I'm sending you all the love and thoughts. I know it's going to
Thank
be
you.
all kinds of an emotional roller coaster tomorrow.
Yes, I know. I was like, I'm more scared of the drunkards than I am of like my own traumatic past, but I'm
Yeah.
just like, I'm just gonna go. You
Yeah.
want to see something? You want to see something ahead of time? Pull out. I'll be
Yeah.
right. Stay right there.
Okay.
Okay. In my graduation cap and gown with my
Uh-huh.
poster book, this is gonna go across my mouth.
I love that. Are you posting on social media or going live or anything?
I have a team of the videographer and a camera guy, and they're gonna follow me. I'm gonna ask them to do like some put it on social type thing too, if they
Okay.
wouldn't mind. But yeah, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna do it. And I'm just like, and the plan is ideally that like I will do this again and again and again. I will go to different campuses and stand out
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
on during their spring break or their graduation
Yeah.
and have people sign my gown. I'm gonna travel with this. Like, so
I
this
love
won't
that.
be, yeah, this is my demonstration against Title IX, like limitations. I'm like, we need to change it.
I love that. Now, I live in Knoxville and I live on a
Ooh,
huge college campus, University of Tennessee. So if you're ever this way,
oh,
let me know.
oh my God.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would go, I would support. When I do things I have to challenge myself with, I just remind myself without trying to make it toxic positivity. I keep trying to remind myself that if I survived what I survived,
Yeah.
I've got this.
Yeah.
you know
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
so that's the kind of energy I'm sending your way. You've got this, and
You.
the thought of it helping and saving one person from some fucked up lifetime trauma.
Yeah.
Let's go do it.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Julie, thank you so
Yeah.
much. I could sit and
Thank
talk to you all day.
you. I
um
know. I feel like
yeah,
you're happy
I know, I
now.
was gonna say I feel like I made a friend. I I'm gonna keep you all posted with the dates, and let's meet up again. Let's have you back. Let's talk more.
That'd be fantastic. I'm
Yes.
happy to. I'm burning the silence down, David.
Yes, let's do it. I love a
Everyone.
good fire ceremony.
Yeah.
Well, do something kind for yourself the rest of today because tomorrow's going to be big for you. So do
Yeah.
something lovely, and thank you so much, and we'll definitely be in touch.
Thank you so much, David. You've been wonderful. You've been my favorite interviewer so far. So
Oh
thank
wow, thank you. That means the world. Oh my gosh. I adore you. Thank you so much.
you. I can't wait to see you again. It'll be great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great.
Okay,
Thank you,
David.
Julie. We will
Yeah.
see you very soon, and I will share all the links.
Thank you so much.